I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled September 18th, 2023 City Council meeting. As you come in tonight, which would be to my right, to everyone else's left, that direction, there's a set of double doors you'll walk through. When you go through those doors, there's a desk. On that desk, there's a sign-in sheet. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign in. Also like to point out, City Manager Mackey will not be with us tonight. He is off on Board of Public Utilities business, so we will not be having a City Manager report tonight. And we'll have to do our best to make our way through the package with the expertise of the city staff that we have present with us tonight. May I have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Yes, Councilmember Morrissey.
Here.
Morrissey.
Oh, yeah, here.
Palladino.
Here.
Pratt. Here. Sharp.
Here.
Soha.
Present.
Stuchel.
Here.
Veer.
Here.
Wolfram.
Here.
Mayor Stockford.
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move into approval of agendas. Any members of City Council have any changes they'd like to see made to the agenda tonight? Katie, didn't we have something?
It's on your.
Like the motion to add the application for permit occupancy street right-of-ways permit for Hillsdale Community Schools for their parade, which will be September 29th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Oh, sorry guys. We'll put this on consent agenda item letter I. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We got an agenda. We'll move into public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. And please ensure if you're talking about anything in this particular public comment period that it has a direct tie to something that's present on the agenda, as this is public comment for agenda items only. The podium is now open.
Good evening. I'm Ginger Novak from Ward 4, and this is in reference to new business, letter F, the food truck discussion. I texted my wardsman about this new tax and got the information that these food truck operators don't contribute anything to the city like the brick and mortar businesses, and this is an effort to equalize the tax structure. Perhaps the correct question to ask is this one: what is the city contributing to the food truck operators? If you succeed in creating this new tax, the small business owners involved will do one or of two things. Some will stay, raise their prices to meet your demands. Some will take those wheels that offend you so much and go to another town, a more welcoming town than Hillsdale. So who loses? Oh, that would be the residents of Hillsdale who are seeking a low-cost lunch option. But they don't just seek a low-cost lunch option, they also vote, and that is something you need to keep in mind. At this $50 registration fee level, which I don't dream in my wildest dreams would ever stay at only $50. But at this point, there's no way you're going to raise as much as $1,000. But let's just say you raised $1,000. We heard last month what a paltry amount council members receive for their participation in city government, but now for less than what we pay one council member for a year, you're eager to open a new tax category. Shall we call it the fairness tax? And why not go ahead and declare tonight the amount of salary required to pay the administrator of our new fairness tax funds? Now, if you want to find $1,000 waste in the city budget and eliminate it, I don't think you'll find one honest citizen in Hillsdale who will oppose you. But the man or woman who has the gumption to attempt to make a decent living by owning and operating a small business should not ever be your tax target. I oppose this new tax most stringently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Any more public comment regarding agenda items?
Good afternoon, Council. Ray Briner, Ward 4, here to talk about the consent agenda, letter H, the Hillsdale County Fair Parade use agreement. Not just specifically that one, but in the community I hear rumblings about a new kind of fee structure for parades and events in the downtown area. I get that is to kind of reimburse the city for services, but I feel like you guys, on the dollar amount that is being assessed, is going to drive parades and events out of the downtown area, which, to name a few, the Light Up Parade, which goes on during Christmas time, and then also our Fair Parade, and then the Summer in the City, just events that bring people from out in the county inside the city to establishments here. So just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention if you guys weren't aware of it already, and maybe take a little bit more in-depth look at those fees that were being assessed for the parades and events like that. Thank you for all you do, and I know it's a thankless job. Thanks.
Thanks, Ray. Any more public comment regarding agenda items?
It's on the current consent agenda item, not on now.
It's on the agenda. That's okay.
James Edward Thomas, 2200 Bar Street. I just wanted to voice my support for a drive-in theater locally. That is all.
Thank you, James.
My name is Jean Heisey. I'm from Ward 4, and my concern is about under new business after food truck discussion. And I have to ask, in looking over information, is it the city's responsibility to make certain that all things are fair? And I foresee that we start nickel and diming or dollaring and dollaring small businesses, and which it will do more to destroy new ideas and inventive ideas, innovative ideas, than to encourage. And especially on the food trucks, I think the relationship between the owner of the truck and the owner of the property. I know we just enjoyed a food truck that was on the property at the bank, and I'm imagining that relationship between the bank and that food truck is just between them. It's not a matter for city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Any more public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close the podium. We'll move into the consent agenda. We've got approval of bills, city and BPU claims of August 31st, payroll of August 31st. City council minutes of September 5th, finance minutes of September 5th, public service committee minutes of September 11th, Hillsdale College noise variance request for a drive-in movie, the American Legion Fall Freedom 5K run, a right-of-way use agreement for Sean's 5K walk run for cancer event, which is this Saturday, the Hillsdale County Fair Parade use agreement, and then the right-of-way permit for Hillsdale Community Schools. Any discussion on any of these items? Councilman Soha.
This new fee structure apply to all of these right-of-way use agreements?
So we passed the new fee structure, would have been in May, I think. And the way that it's written right now, there are no exemptions for it. But I think, Councilman Briner's onto something. I was recently part of a conversation that and I know I talked to a couple council members about it already, but I'll share it amongst the table, that the light up parade got a quote for $2,048.88 to hold the light up parade. We're kind of in the same situation here with the street closure for this Scarecrow Fest thing. I think that it would not do us harm to revisit the fee structure and talk about particulars and maybe talk about exemptions for certain events. I understand why we needed to make the increases, and I understand that we all voted for them. They were in the consent agenda, so not a lot of discussion happened about them, but it's not uncommon that, things get passed and then we look at them and say, I didn't take this into account. So I think Ray's right to bring up that we might be cutting off our nose to spite our face over a couple $1,000s here and there. So, any more discussion on any of the items in the consent agenda? Councilman Wolford?
Yeah, I was also going to comment on this, that the light up parade and the fair parade and those things all bring a lot of people into town, and that is something that it's good to have people coming in and seeing the city, and that they might not have been coming into town for any other reason, and now they see here and they see there's a restaurant that they can go to, and so I was not here in April when this passed, so if I'd been here, I'd probably say let's think about that. But anyway, I do think you're right that we should be able to have a mechanism by which we can reduce that fee substantially. Maybe just have a small fee, but to really, I do think that we're going to make it less for these entities that are putting these events together. It's going to be a strain for some of them. So I agree with your point there.
Absolutely. So do we want to have a public services meeting? And Councilman Sharp?
All you have to do is, if you want people in town, look Saturday. Come down and check the farmers market out. That downtown is live. And we're not charging them anything. And we don't want to. We want to encourage the downtown because it helps the downtown businesses. Just talk to any of them down there, they love it. I mean, you go to Hillsdale, you look at Hillsdale at 9 o'clock in the morning, that place is packed. Go through at 3. Take a good look. It's empty. It looks like a ghost town. I'm sorry to say that, but it does. But I don't want to charge for, I want to encourage to have parades here. This is kind of crazy when you hear that. Thank you, Ray, too, Mr. Briner, for bringing it to our attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Sharp. I do want to clarify, we are charging the farmers market according to the new fee schedule, but there are ways to offset it, like bringing your own barriers, so they're not getting that excessive charge. But there was a lot of frustrated discussions at the beginning of the farmers market because of the fee schedule. So don't want anybody to think they're getting special treatment. They are getting charged for the street closure, which they have an option that they can hold it in the Hillsdale County Courthouse lawn always if they wanted to offset that, but parades,
So I agree with you, we should send it to committee.
Public Services Committee.
That's usually the ones.
Hey, you guys want to have another meeting?
Yeah, we've been enjoying them. Yeah, we just talked about the fee structure generally, a few points about it. Main thing is covering the city's costs, but I mean, ultimately, who's going to have to pay for these things if the city doesn't cover its costs? Is going to be the businesses that are there permanently. So I understand people are seeing this as a sort of a new tax on mobile businesses, right? But they're coming in, they're setting up shop, they don't have to pay property taxes, they make all their money in 3 hours and they get out of there. right? But then the ghost town is left that's still paying the property taxes, so, you know, discussing equalization would be great. Discussing a way to make sure we don't drive them out is great, but also we can't lose money on it.
Okay. All right. So we're just specifically right now talking about the holding a public services committee meeting to revisit the fee schedule. And look for, I mean, you guys are smart. You guys can figure out a way to come up with exemptions or reductions on a case-to-case basis based on what the event is, I think. Yeah? Councilman Beer?
Just going to Tom, can you weigh in on a little bit of this as far as the flexibility on if you have fee schedules and to give certain entities, whether it be nonprofits, exemption from those fees?
You would want to have very clear criteria for determining who does and doesn't have to pay, or who does or doesn't get a reduction. So it can't be something where it's subject to discretion, because if it is, you open up the whole can of worms. Well, how come that guy got it and I didn't get it? Is it because that guy's got a friend on the city council, or that sort of thing? So you'd want to make sure that it's not something that's discretionary, that you've got criteria that would specifically establish who has to pay the full total, who gets a break, and how that's determined. So it's in effect like an administrative checkoff kind of function. Okay, you fall under this box. But yeah, I mean, you're the city council. If you wanted to charge, because it's not a tax, remember, or at least the parade kind of thing. It's a fee to cover the city's costs. So the city could give some organizations relief from that if it wanted to. But again, you want to make sure you specify what the criteria is for you to qualify for that.
Tom, could you do that in regards to, like, a lot of times with zoning, if you have a non-compliant, like for these things that we've been doing for multiple years, like the fair parade, even for that community schools homecoming parade that we've been doing on multiple years prior to us coming up with this fee schedule, would it be legal to exempt those existing events that we've always done in the past?
I think you're running a slippery slope there if you do that. I don't know that would be enforceable. There are a lot of different things that could come up as objections to that people could raise. Some of them could be on a free speech basis, right? Because I have an organization wants to have a parade or gathering in the city, and you're telling me I can't do it, but these guys over here can do it. Well, I might say that that's because you don't like what my organization has to say or what it stands for or that sort of thing, right? So if you were going to make those distinctions, you have to make sure that whatever criteria you're making them on is something that's clear and on the basis of something that seems like it's rational, and it's not something that is arbitrary or capricious in terms of how you determine who gets the benefit of it or not. Like, for example, if you're a nonprofit organization, if you're a 501c3 and you've been qualified as a charitable organization, that sort of thing, that you get a break. And if you're not, then you don't. So those would be the kinds of things I might look at in terms of what may or may not fly. And that's without me having done any research to see if there's any case law that says what you may or may not be able to do from that perspective. But my initial thought is you need to have, if you're going to do it, if you do it in any particular fashion in terms of giving breaks to people, you at least would have to have that kind of very firm criteria.
Thanks.
Councilman Wolfram?
Yeah, but also we ought to sort of realize that when they hold a parade, they're providing entertainment for people, and they can't charge you, right? It's what we call common property resource, right? So they can't charge you, but it's not like you're not benefiting from the parade. I'm benefiting from the parade just being there. And so, to sort of argue that, well, the rest of the city is having to pay for this thing. I mean, partly maybe you could think of it as the city providing this resource to all its constituency that they have these events that they can go to. So I just wanted to point out that there's an advantage to all the citizenry from having these things go on.
Councilman Sharp.
Do we charge the high school for homecoming parade then? How are we gonna do that?
We're gonna have to now.
The, okay.
Any more discussion? So public services can meet. I like Tom's suggestion to have a checklist. That's how we do it on zoning board of appeals. Is this zoning variance going to affect your neighbor's property? Is this zoning variance unreasonable? Just, half dozen items maybe. Checklist. Anyways, you guys are smart. You'll figure it out. All the faith in the world. Rob.
Tom, could we do a reprieve right now for this year until we reassess everything?
You've adopted the schedule, so you would have to take some legislative action to want to do that, if that's what you wanted to do. In other words, once you've enacted something that's sort of the law of the city, because you're the legislative body for the city, so if you want to have that exempted, you actually have to take legislative action to do that, which would require.
We need to have a meeting because we went through this with farmers market. There was a lot of heated discussions and arguments. I think they'd be really upset if we just snapped our fingers and changed it right now and didn't do that for them when they were objecting so strongly to the new schedule of fees.
That's fair. I was just thinking about all of these that we're approving today or before our next meeting. So I was just thinking out loud, I guess. I think the farmers market would understand. I'd be in favor of legislatively today suspending fees for parades through the end of the fiscal year if anyone wants to discuss that.
Well, would we just suspend all the fees or would we revert to the fees that we had before we passed the new schedule of fees? Because we've always had some fees for these sorts of events. Jason, will you come up here and?
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to the farmer's market, they did pay the new fee. What got them, I don't say got out of them, but lowered that fee was they on their own went and rented all their traffic control from Spark Barricade. They did have the hospital, from my understanding, go sponsor for them as well. So they did take up on themselves to do all that work to do that. And one thing I would ask if we can at least have a public service meeting to discuss this, if we could, before we strict some of the fees or all the fees where we go. Some of the stuff, the information I have, some MCLs, MCL 123.851 talks about what can and can't be an expenditure. So I'd like to share that with the public service committee if we can before we have it on.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
And I would.
I'll make a motion that we send it to public services then.
Okay. Okay, motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman.
You got one more, sir.
I know, I was waiting for the.
We're just gonna fix that quick.
Yeah. This is just to send it to the meeting, so. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Morrissey, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. I know we haven't approved the consent agenda yet. What is it, Todd?
That's okay. One thing I was going to add, so when you do take a look at it in committee, and this sort of dovetails probably with some of the stuff that was just referenced of the lectern, there are, under Michigan law, you cannot give away public resources to private entities without obtaining fair value for them, right? So there may be some issues related to that. If as you go through and look at it, you'd like for me to do some research as to what the constraints of that are before your meeting, let me know when that is, and I can give you an idea of what you can or can't do, so you know kind of what the playing field is legally.
And I just want to say right now, and this is not lecturing you guys because I voted for this too, but we gotta think about these things, guys, before we pass them. We just passed this in May, and obviously I didn't ask the right questions, and the rest of us didn't. So it's a failure on my part. So don't think I'm lecturing you, vote. Councilman Beer.
We passed the new fee schedules from Jason, basically bringing them in line and actually more into line with the cost that it's resulting in the city. So now granted, we might have jumped the gun a tad, but at the same time, going back to what Tom said too, as a council, we cannot give away city assets just because we think that the benefit is, we just aren't allowed legally to do that. So I say, as far as when we maybe go back to it, have, just for discussion purposes, figure out what the actual cost for each of these services is and adjust the fees accordingly, I guess.
Thank you, Councilman Beer. Josh?
I was just gonna add that in our conversation with Jason, I'm pretty sure the criteria was the cost to the city, right? I don't think we're making money on any of these, and I'm pretty sure his attempt was to equalize, right? They have billable hours, they have material costs, all these things. It was just to make one-to-one.
Well, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Councilman Holford.
Well, what if the city did a fireworks display? And so people could watch it, right? And would that be giving away city resources to do that? Because I'm trying to make the connection like I was trying to make before, that these things are providing a service to the individuals in the city by having these things available for us to see, and there's no mechanism for the entity that's providing it to charge the people who are watching it, just like you can't, effectively charge people to watch the fireworks. So I would like to sort of present it from that angle.
Well, the difference might be that in your example, the city's doing it. The city is not expending money and giving it to a private entity. In effect, if you give a benefit to a private entity, you're giving away some of the resources that belong to the public. So, for example, you have to pay public officials, you have to use public equipment, you have to do that sort of thing. And that private entity gets the benefit of that without contributing anything in exchange for that. And that's sort of the reason that that's one of the main reasons that that's an element of the law in Michigan is it helps make sure that it's sort of an anti-corruption measure, right? Because far too often, somebody who knows somebody within the local government or the state government or whatever it may be, and their private outfit gets the benefit of something when maybe somebody else's does not. And so that's pretty firmly entrenched in Michigan law. Now, how much of that relates to this discussion, I'd have to look at to tell you what, again, the constraints in that would be. The city can do it because the city's not giving that benefit to a specific private entity. But if a private entity is holding the fireworks, which typically one of the things they do is they might get sponsors to help defray the costs, not only the cost of the fireworks, but to the extent that you have to have police presence and that sort of thing, you get a permit, they have people sponsor it and provide the money to be able to pay for those costs. Because in the alternative, the city has to pay for it, and then the determination has to be made, is it worth it, right? So, from a legal standpoint, that's what I'm talking about. That's a matter of longstanding Michigan law, and it's deemed to be a constitutional law.
Yeah, but I would argue that the entity is providing the service by having the parade. It's not like that the entity is gaining from this. The entity, I'm arguing that the entity is providing the service to the rest of us by having the parade.
Unfortunately, under state law, that one's not going to fly. If you were standing in front of a court under Michigan law, that's not the type of service that they're talking about. They're talking about a service. For example, the best example I can use is giving money to have a contract every year with domestic harmony, right? And it used to be that they would come around and ask for a donation. You can't make that kind of donation to a private entity. But what you can do is you can have a contract with them if they're providing a service that would otherwise be provided by the municipality. Well, municipality typically doesn't provide parades. These are entities that want to have a parade, but most cities themselves don't necessarily sponsor parades. If they do, they pay for it out of their coffers. It's not like there's a contract with a separate entity, like for example, used to happen in Detroit with the Thanksgiving Day parade. There was a parade company, literally called the Parade Company, that handled taking care of the Detroit Hudson's Thanksgiving Day parade every year. Well, that entity did receive funding, but it is a quasi-private entity or public entity that provides for that parade that was formed to do that, and they enter into a contract with them to do the thing that the city otherwise uses.
Thank you, Tom. Team, we've got a public hearing tonight. We've got 7 new item agendas. We haven't got through the consent agenda yet, and we've already scheduled a public services meeting. So can we please move on from this? Yeah? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Sharp. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilmember Palladino.
Yes.
Pratt. Yes. Sharp.
Yes.
Solha.
Yes.
Stuchel.
Yes.
Beer.
Yes.
Wolfram.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey.
Yes.
9-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into communications petitions. The first item is a letter from Comcast. Yay. Second item is, item letter B is the assessment roll for Public Act 660 of 2018 State Tax Commission audit results. You guys want to talk about either of these things? All right, the third item is a nice letter from the village of Clinton that was thanking us for assisting them with their power outage. So it's nice, you know, we got a lot of help when we had our ice storm, so it's nice to see that we were able to reciprocate. And the last letter, item D, is a street light letter from James Edward and Christine Thomas. Did I read this to you guys at the last meeting? Yes?
It's in the package.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I read it at the last meeting. I did talk with Mr. Thomas earlier today and told him that my suggestion would be to not offer to pay all the fees on it because you never know what you're getting into when government's doing work on this. But I think James has made a lot of effort to try to get this fixed, and I think he's made a lot of suggestions. Early ones had some holes in them, but I think we finally arrived at something that seems completely fair to me, and I would be in favor of this, allowing this to happen. So, any discussion on this item? Councilman Sharp.
What is he so concerned about the light? Is it because he's growing something there that the light is causing him some problems?
Yes, I believe that's how the original I believe that's originally how the complaint first took place, was a garden, some activity in his garden. Any more discussion on this? Councilman Palladino?
We discussed it at the Public Services meeting on Monday. He's gonna submit a work order for BPU. The bulb currently goes below the shade, so 2 options, smaller bulb, bigger shade. Jason seemed fairly confident that they could get this done for not an exorbitant rate. It's gonna be several $100s, but nothing to break the bank, so
okay.
Hopefully it'll be resolved within the BPU's internal mechanisms.
Jason or Jake? So what I had told Mr. Thomas was that, you know, he should probably put a limit on what his donation or contribution should be at about $400. That way, I just remember a young gentleman, and I'm sure you'll remember this, that chopped down a a dead tree in a right of way, and ended up getting a $5,000 bill from the city because that was the forester's value of the tree. So I don't want to put a quasi-resident into a situation like that.
Sure.
But you seem to think we can get this all straightened out with a.
Yes, I talked to DPU, Jake Campbell the other day. The work order is in. First step, we're going to try to change the light, as Councilman Palladino said. That's going to be at our cost. After that, they're going to change, with the bulb change, it's going to be a smaller diameter bulb and a softer bulb as well. If those don't work, then we'll go into a charge situation with putting a shield or something on it. But we're going to explore the options first.
Awesome. Great news. Well, sounds good, James.
Am I allowed to make a small comment? I don't want to break your decorum at all.
We just changed the rules that we're not going to do that in communications because we ended up in.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it sounds like we're getting it all straightened out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Any more discussion on this?
I'll just add, I'll just add that we requested that BPU generally try to make sure the bulbs, I understand there were some transition issues, but the bulbs either fit in the shade or the shades are extended for future, future installations. So hopefully this won't be a problem in the future.
All right, very good. I admire your perseverance, sir. All right, any discussion on any of the items in communications petitions? Okay, we'll move on. We've got a public hearing. We're setting a public hearing. Yeah, it is. I didn't. Why? Is that normal to set a public hearing, to have that in the introduction adoption of public hearings? Katie?
It should say set a public hearing, I don't know.
Okay. No, it does say set a public hearing. It's just. Okay. All right, so October 16th, 2023. And this is dogs in the city cemetery. Obviously, we've had this issue for a long time. People are letting them run through the cemetery unleashed. We have an ordinance, but it's been consistently ignored. And then to make matters even worse, we've got hallowed ground where people are allowing their pets to defecate on gravestones, and that's most certainly a travesty. So we want to set the public hearing for October 16th. Do you have something to add, Jason?
No, sir.
Any discussion on this item?
What time is
It would be 7 p.m. It would be at our normal city council meeting.
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Sharp, to set the public hearing for October 16th, which would be the second meeting in October. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we'll move on to old business. We've got old business, item letter A, assessing code enforcement vehicle. Jason.
Yes, sir. After we brought this last council meeting, I did some research on the vehicles. I know we discussed that it had 116,000, 130,000 miles on these vehicles. I just wanted to bring it up that these vehicles aren't personal use vehicles, 116,000, 115,000 miles on them. These cars have, the Explorer for code enforcement has 13,000 idle hours on it in addition to the mileage. So with the equation that I got from Ford, that's roughly 450,000 miles. Same thing with the engineering car, 117,000 miles, 17,000 idle, roughly 560,000 miles. Same thing with the Airport Explorer, it's kind of the same through. Now those vehicles idle for a lot of time before they come here, partially due to the use of them, right? So they're idling for electronics, computers in them to be ready for the functionality of the day for the department they're in. It's not just the police department, but our department, DPS, is the same too. A lot of our vehicles have more hours on them than they do miles, just because of the way they work. You know, they're out with the strobes out on the highway, protecting the guys while they're doing traffic. I would say the engineering vehicle has been out of service for 2 months. That part is getting the second rack and pinion put in it. That car is worth about $4,100, and the rack and pinion is going to be about $1,200 to $1,800. The only reason we repaired it this time because it is under warranty, because we just got it repaired earlier this year. This vehicle also, the code enforcement requested. It's not just used for the code enforcement, it's the zoning department. Performs on-site appraisals, and is also utilized by the engineering department and the engineer techs for street projects through the year. We did do some research trying to find some used vehicles. Most used vehicles we're finding in the $20,000 range are actually about 22 to 23,000 with 40,000 miles. The bumper-to-bumper warranty, of course, is gone on that after 3 years or 36,000 miles. The warranty drivetrain is 5 years or 60,000 miles. With what we're finding on there, you only have 2 years left of the warranty, just the limited warranty, with the cost of $22,000 to $23,000. The vehicle that we had from Penn Stillwell's in this was at $29,541. With the cost savings of $7,000 of doing the warranty, I think that would warrant the new vehicle. But that's what I asked still to try to get approval on purchasing the vehicle.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? Councilman Stuchel.
How many people use this vehicle? So approximately 4 to 6, depending on the year. It's 4 to 6.
Okay,
Yeah. In the summertime, there's 2 summer interns that also utilize the vehicle.
Councilman Sharp.
when was that Explorer, the one they're using right now, what's wrong with it? Has it been taken to a shop and had it looked at?
Correct, it has. So the vehicle they currently have now needs about $1,000 repair. We're doing that in our shop in-house. So the only vehicle that's off the road right now is the engineer department's car, which is that part is rented for about 2 months. So their cars are gonna come over to our department after it's done. If this car went through, the vehicles will kind of slide down. I'll get that car, engineer will get this one, and so on.
Well, we had this brought to us the last meeting, and we were looking at the luxury items that Stillwell's vehicle had: heated seats here, heated steering wheel, and heated mirror. Why couldn't you rebid that out and find one that has less luxury items in it, maybe a lower cost?
So we could. So I actually went on their website today, Stillwell's, and all their new cars and Escapes, regardless of the trim, has those 2 options on there. And the used one that they have, that I actually have right here, the cheapest one for $21,000, has those same options as well on this model. So it is kind of a standard model through those. We absolutely could do that and do a different bid, but we are still getting about $4,200 discount with the government pricing that Penn Stillwell's gave us as well.
Councilman Beer.
But it was budgeted, we had budgeted in this current budget for $30,000 to replace this particular vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's actually coming in under budget.
Councilman Wolf.
And I spoke last time that I thought that you could probably save money in the long run by buying a new vehicle with the warranty on it, particularly when the pricing came in. Again, you pointed out, if you go to buy a used vehicle, it's probably going to cost you $22,000 to start with.
Yes.
And then, and so the pricing seemed really pretty good, and so I would be in support of it.
Councilman Palladino.
The police department transferred this to the building department in 2020. Correct. And they put about 4,500 miles on it since then.
Correct.
Just with the limited use, for me, it seems like let's just run this vehicle into the ground. I think you said repairs were about $1,000, right? You know, we're not going to get 30 years out of the Ford Explorer, so $1,000 this year seems like the cheaper way to go. I just think, you know, it's a poor city. We don't have a lot of funds. Let's try to act like it. And the limited mileage, I think, is the other thing. You know, if they were planning on putting another 20,000 on it this year, and it was going to just die on the road in a critical situation, I could see that. But you know, they're putting, I think it came out to 4 miles a day. So, yeah, I'd like to see this just ride it out, I think.
Any more discussion? Councilman Sharp.
I gotta agree with you. This is first, but to me, there's other things we should be spending money on. And we just went through West St. Joe last meeting too and told them, suck it up, Buttercup. And now here we are doing this again, so I will not support it.
Any more discussion, Councilman Soha?
I seem to recall that I brought up the used vehicle because a constituent had emailed us. I don't know, were we all included in that email? You know, Councilman Wolfram suggested a new vehicle would be a better purchase if we were to purchase a vehicle based on what he just reiterated tonight, and I would agree with that, but I'm inclined to agree with Councilman Palladino and Sharp about this particular instance with the fiscal responsibility on our shoulders. Although if I were to vote for this, I would absolutely give Stillwell a business. But my question is, with the money that was allocated for this vehicle in the budget, what do we do with that?
I don't know the answer to that, Jason.
I do not know any of it.
Budget
It was probably
surpluses,
back in
I
the
mean,
general fund.
yeah, we'll go back in the general fund. Councilman Palladino.
We could use that money to pay for our next election, which we're about to talk about. We could use that money to offset some of these special assessment costs. Lots of different places it could go.
There's always places to spend money, and there's always reasons to raise taxes. That's something I've learned in my decade in city government. Councilman Soha, did you have something to add?
Would I request from you, if you would be so kind, would you keep a log of repair costs
Absolutely,
over the next couple of years, and let's see.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So last meeting, nobody motioned or seconded, so is somebody gonna motion in second so we can at least vote on it this time, or?
I'll make a motion to approve the Stillwell purchase.
I'll support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Wolfram, seconded by Councilman Beer. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilmember Pratt,
No.
Sharp,
No.
Soha,
No.
Stuchel,
No.
Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
No.
Councilperson Morrissey,
No.
and Palladino.
No.
2 to, what's it, 7?
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
All right, item B in old business is progress report, code enforcement on 61 South Howell Street. Alan.
So as most of you are aware, the structure at 61 South Howell caught fire and burned back in November of last year. The owner had no homeowner's insurance and does not have, and has told the city that they do not intend on abating the issue of the destroyed structure. So in March, the council passed an ordinance declaring it a public nuisance. And I had sent out for bids, quotes, to have it demolished. I sent it out to 3 excavators. One did not, never returned a quote. Another one said that he did not have the ability to tear it down considering its location and proximity to other structures. Parrish was the only company that felt confident in tearing it down and submitted a quote. At the time, I was going to bring it to council at that point, but we had a different house fall down, 178 North Manning, so we wound up using the funds that would have been allocated for 61 South Howell to tear down 178. So now that Parrish finally is able to put it in their schedule to have it demolished, I need approval to spend the funds.
Thank you, Alan, and Councilman Palladino, I think you just got your question answered, where the money could go. Councilman Beer.
Alan, how much was the tearing down the one on the 178?
I honestly don't remember. I think it was right around 30,000.
It was about 30,000. And on this one right now, because of the closeness to other vehicles, we're looking at minimum.
Part of that too is the fact that there is some asbestos abatement required in 61. 178 was at the point where it was unsafe for there to be any abatement, so we didn't have that added expense.
that we're basically looking at this one is, well, the first bid was like 38 with the contingency of another 8,600 for.
Right, so we didn't, and as it turned out, we won't need to spend the 8,600 because, they did go on site and review it, and the shingles do not contain asbestos.
So we're at
So it's 38 and some change, yeah.
Councilman Sharp?
I've seen parishes work when they tore down those two nightmares near me, and they do a very good job, and they're very professional. And I can see the proximity of what they're working in. That's why that one company didn't even want to touch it, and Parish will do a great job. So I'm in favor of this.
I don't think we have a choice on this one. We can't just let it stay in like it is. So, Councilman Salah.
I mean, it's day I drive by it every morning almost, and it's very concerning to me. But I spoke to Mr. Parrish about this specifically. I was just curious for my own comfort why it's so expensive. And it is the proximity to his neighbors. It is getting into the street, repairing the curb, repairing the sidewalk. There's a number of things that are very concerning, which is why Alan only received the one bid. So thank you for that work, Alan. I'm in favor.
Yeah, but tragedy all around for sure. Councilman Beer.
Would it be possible to get, maybe open up the bids as far as get some additional ones?
I mean, we could try, but Parish finally has it on the calendar, and like I said, the local contractors that normally do this type of work for the city, Parish is the only one that returned a quote. So which is why I submitted the sole source document, and that's why.
So there's only 3?
And it's already been standing for a year, so.
But the city's secured it, right?
The plywood.
On the windows.
Only to make sure the rats stop going in and out. It's not secure in any way, shape, or form. It's still a dangerous structure. So.
Councilman Salah.
And it appears like it could collapse imminently. I mean,
it's not secured in any way. The only thing that we did was we secured the basement and the lower windows to discourage squatters and to discourage rodents. But the roof is still exposed. Actually, the interior is still exposed due to the fact that there is no roof. And it's just a matter of time before it falls down on its own. And with the structures next door, the nearest structure is only 5 feet away. So it will wind up damaging the next door, the adjacent structure if it does fall down.
when is Parish have it on their schedule?
September 28th is when abatement begins, and then 10 days after abatement, so it'll be like the end of the first week of October that it'll actually be torn down. So Eagle requires 10 days to do an evaluation on the abatement, and the county cannot issue a building permit until Eagle releases it, and that generally takes 10 days. So.
Councilman Beer.
Alan, I don't mean to be hard on you, but you originally asked for these quotes back in April 12th. You only got one responding, and you responded to that May 25th.
Yeah, because I kept trying to get him to give it to me on an actual letterhead.
And so we're looking at June, July, August, and then I'm just kind of curious as far as why you, at the point of only getting one back, you didn't open. I mean, as far as maybe contacting some additional. I cannot believe that for 38,000 you can get someone coming from, I'm thinking 100 miles or more out. Why you didn't open
because
up?
I wanted to stick with somebody who I work with locally. And the two other contractors that I work with locally, both of them chose not to submit a quote. Parish is the only one that did.
But you limited your search just to.
Yep. Right. Because I knew that Parish would do it. I knew that those three, if they gave me a quote, could do it and do it well, and they were local. I mean, we did that with, we went outside when we tore down 23 and 25 North Broad, and that one went to North American Dismantling Company. And at that time, they were the only ones that Parrish submitted a bid, but theirs was slightly higher than this one.
But now, did you contact that one?
They weren't interested when I contacted them back in
So
April.
you did contact?
Back in April.
Councilman Sharp.
Parrish has done good work. The two houses they tore down by me, it was $53,000. They cleaned it up, it looks really good. As far as construction companies go, or tearing down companies, they're all busy. So it's gonna be any job you're putting out there, they're just gonna look at it, well, talk to me next year maybe. So, do we just leave it there, or do we tear it down, or do we wanna have another house implode? Like we did on Manning Street? No, we need to have this done. So I make a motion to award this bid to Parrish.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Soha to award the bid to Parrish Excavating in the amount of, hell, I gotta do the math here. $38,316.30. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Sharp,
Yes.
Soha,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Palladino,
Yes.
and Pratt. Yes. It's 9-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Alan. All right. We will move out of old business into new business. Item letter A, accelerated forfeiture abandoned property. And this is a resolution. Hope you guys all looked at the current property tax provisions. Public Act 132 of 1999, the Certification of Abandoned Property for Accelerated Forfeiture Act, allows for cities, villages, and townships to certify property as abandoned for purposes of accelerating the property tax forfeiture and foreclosure process under the provisions of the General Property Tax Act. If property is certified as abandoned, the forfeiture for unpaid 2023 taxes would become effective March 1st, 2024, and the foreclosure would be accelerated by 1 year to March 1st, 2025. In order to certify properties as abandoned, council must pass a resolution annually by October 1st. Once the resolution is passed, staff can identify and inspect properties suspected of being abandoned. Abandoned properties could be posted and notice sent to the recorded owner before February 1st that the tax forfeiture and foreclosure process will be accelerated if the taxes are returned to the county treasurer as delinquent as of March 1st. In order to avoid the accelerated foreclosure, the owner could either pay the outstanding taxes, penalties, interest, and fees, or file an affidavit stating that the property is not abandoned. So the resolution is attached. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor, how often, do we do this annually, or how often do we? 3 years? I seem to remember doing this once before, I was just.
We did do this once before. I remember you voted against it. Any more discussion? Councilman Palladino?
How much unpaid tax does there have to be before there's a foreclosure?
Well, it doesn't specify in the,
They got 3 years, and then after that.
I mean, I remember the county, didn't Hillsdale County take somebody's property over $8?
It's the third year.
The third year?
It's the third year, and it's all by statute, so if you don't pay it all by the third year of delinquency, then it is subject to tax foreclosure. If it
Okay.
becomes forfeited, when you fail to pay in the third year, it's subject to foreclosure, and once it's foreclosed on, the property owner loses all rights in the property, except that they're entitled to get any excess proceeds from the tax sale now that are above and beyond what's necessary to pay the taxes.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? I'd entertain a motion to adopt the attached resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Beer, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Soha,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
No.
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Palladino,
Yes.
Pratt. Yes. And Sharp.
Yes.
It's 8-1 approved. That's resolution 3573.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move into new business item B, joint early voting site agreement. Katie, do you want to take this?
Sure.
And I see Abe's here too.
Abe
I'm
is
sure
here.
for any additional information needed.
Yes, I might bring them up actually. In November of 2020, proposal 2020-2 was passed requiring additional early in voting in Michigan, amongst a few other things. So the county and the 22 municipalities within it have been working together to create and operating a joint early voting site. We've been working on a 9-day early voting site agreement, which was presented to you. And this is to help alleviate staffing issues and help us with cost-saving measures. Within this agreement, each municipality will be sharing in the expense for the voting site, opposed to doing separate sites. It would be a lot more on the taxpayer. So within this, the area clerks will be serving as the on-site supervisors on the days that they're serving, and will be providing their own inspectors. And that's in Exhibit B if you look at that. So I've also attached in a summary that the Hillsdale County Election Commission has set the days and times by resolution. And it's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. each Saturday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. on each Sunday, 9 to 5, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday, just to kind of help people, you know. So what I'm recommending, as the state requires an executed contract, to save taxpayer funds and help with the staffing concerns, I would recommend to approve the attached agreement with the county for a joint early voting site and authorize myself as city clerk to sign on behalf of the city. So,
Thank you, Katie. Where would the joint early voting site be located?
so that's at the courthouse
At
and
the
the
courthouse.
election, so, the election room.
Room 2 of
Office.
the courthouse.
Yeah. So,
Could constituents also vote here?
it would be set up at the courthouse.
Okay. Any questions for,
I mean, we
Katie
have,
or Ed?
have, you know, the,
This would be in addition to voting in person on election day
and
at your normal
absentee, right,
precinct.
we'd also have absentee ballots available too, so. This is just the whole 9-day early voting that the residents and voters passed.
yeah, proposal 2. Councilman Beer.
So they're gonna have somebody at the courthouse from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays?
It's a consecutive, a 9-day consecutive, so it starts with the second Saturday
So
up
Saturday,
to
Sunday.
the last Sunday before the election on Tuesday.
So then it goes, oh, okay, I see that it kind of flips, it does the Sunday, Saturday again,
Yes.
and Monday, and then you have your normal election day.
So
For a
the
total of-
Monday before, the day before the election, there won't be an early voting. That's a kind of a pause in that. Voters would still have access to absentee voting with their municipal clerk, but there wouldn't be early voting that day. It would just be those 2 weekends before the election and the week in between.
And the week in between. And then, I saw somewhere, what's the estimated cost of all this increased accessibility?
So Addendum A, which should be the last attachment as part of this agreement, is an estimated budget. And the really difficult part here is that the state is not telling us how much they're going to share with us. They have floated to the clerk community that they want to cover 80% of the costs, but regardless, I know that they're going to cover a lot of the equipment, certainly the tabulators, But aside from that, I'm not sure how much they're gonna cover. They've said they could cover even up to $15 an hour for the inspectors, but I'm a little hesitant to say that will happen based on what the state's, their track record as far as making promises. So I would like to just say how we got here is that, none of us, and certainly the voters in this community did not support this, and none of the clerks in our county supported this. But as soon as it started happening, all of the municipal clerks who have a great relationship with the county clerk's office, we've been working on this and trying to figure out how to implement it and follow what's now part of our Constitution. And so this is the result of that, trying to save the taxpayers' money, trying to keep our oftentimes part-time township clerks and even some of the city clerks from pulling their hair out. They can't do this themselves. So Hillsdale is centrally located, which poses a little bit of a problem for some of the far-reaching areas of the county, but everyone always has their absentee option with their municipal clerk and their election day option. And then also, as you could see, as Katie mentioned in Exhibit B, we really were stressing that the municipal clerks play a key role in oversight of this precinct, not the county. The county's role is more in managing the costs and divvying out, the reimbursement requests, making sure that it's staffed, things like that.
So, somebody comes in and votes, Abe. They drop it in like a drop box after voting, and then on election day they're pulled out and counted, or they accumulated. The county starts the day that they vote, and you guys count them at the end of every day.
It's the ballots are tabulated. So we said all along, why early voting when you can early vote with an absentee ballot?
Already can.
The difference is that here the voter can come in, get their ballot, and actually put it into the tabulator. Now, it's still against the law for that tabulator to tally the votes until after 8 o'clock on election night. But it takes the ballot, it scans it, and then it doesn't tally or count all the votes until election night.
Councilman Beer.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the cost here, so on all the scanners, the laptops, the ballot kit, come out to $35,424. And then the precinct notices mailed to all registered voters, that's costing $16,000 to get a total of $51,424.
And that's countywide.
That's countywide, okay. And then figure in the inspectors to man these precincts voting things, it's they have it calculated at $9,300. And then this is anything state level or higher, correct?
State or federal.
Right, we are not going to do this for any elections other than the state and federal.
And how often do we have state and federal? Is it like once a year or once every 2 years?
So the presidential years will have 3
Right.
because of the presidential primary, and then the gubernatorial years we should only have 2.
But we don't have, the city doesn't even have local elections anymore. We piggyback on the state and federal elections, so this would put all of our city elections.
That's not, there was a street millage that was in an off year just recently.
Usually we try to piggyback to city.
Sure. I'm talking about like, you're right.
Like council members.
Yeah, I'm
that
talking
you guys are
about,
all-
elected officials essentially.
Yeah.
Councilman Stuchel.
When you say you tabulate at the end of the day, so at the end of the day, I mean, I assume you audit this. So if you're not counting votes, but you're counting ballots. So if you have 500 ballots come in at Cambria Township, then there should be, that total vote should equal 500. Do you audit that? Do you confirm that?
Every evening, it's actually in the statute that the procedure, you count how many ballots were issued and you count how many ballots were tabulated. And that's how you balance at the end of the night. So, end of each night, you secure everything, lock everything away, and that's part of the reason why we picked the location we did is because we have a vault there and it's secure. And then it starts back up the next day, right where it left off.
But the question, if Hillsdale County submits 8,500 votes, and it comes back that 10,000 votes were read, how do you catch that? I mean, do you know that?
I'm not
Well, I'm
entirely sure what
saying,
you're
let's say you had 8,500 ballots that were submitted altogether.
through countywide or through this early voting?
Countywide.
Okay.
Okay, and then at the end of the day, Hillsdale said we had 10,000 people actually voted, but you don't have that number. You say no, only 8,500 people voted, not 10,000. Is there an audit, a check balance to what the actual vote count came in said? I mean, what the recorded official vote count versus what yours is?
So I'm having trouble understanding exactly what you're saying, because in my mind, every single precinct, whether it's this early voting precinct or an election day precinct, is always doing that, where they're balancing and they're counting how many physical ballots they have versus how many voters they've had.
Right.
And so if that's happening in every single precinct, the scenario you're coming up with.
What I'm saying though, because you don't know who voted for who. So we have candidate A and candidate B, and all of a sudden those two candidates added together are more than what you have.
Okay,
What happens?
There are audits, and there's also the recount procedure that's in the law. But there are random audits that happen after every election cycle, after every election.
I guess my bottom line question is, you feel pretty secure with this, that you can manage this properly? That's my question.
We do.
Okay.
I don't like the extra work without any compensation that it's requiring, but I feel very strongly that it will be secure, yes.
Councilman Beard. And then, okay, those figures I just read off, that's countywide. So how do they break that down to the townships as far as, is it done by number of voters?
So
our votes?
The top, let me break this down a little bit better for you. The top half is gonna be your implementation costs. Depending on how the state is only gonna cover the equipment part of that. The notice is on our own, okay? That's required in the law that we have to send a notice out.
Okay.
The state's not gonna cover that. They'll cover a certain percentage of the equipment. If what they cover isn't as much as I'd like, then I'll probably spread that reimbursement out among the 3 elections next year, so that it's not all up front for the presidential primary. And then the bottom half is your after implementation. That's your reoccurring cost for every election. You're paying your inspectors, things that you're gonna have to do every time. So once this equipment and implementation part is all done, then your reoccurring costs, you're looking at with all municipalities involved, and I actually have, at this point this month, I've been to a lot of the meetings throughout the county, and I'm only, I think, 6 signatures shy of having everyone on board with this. So it would be, with all 22 municipalities, about $500 every election for your cost, and that is split equally among all municipalities.
So whether you have 5,000 votes or 1,000 votes?
Because there's one site and everyone is required to have this option for their voters, then it's an even split. The only thing that is not even would be your notices. That would be based on how many registered voters are in your jurisdiction.
Councilman Soha.
Hey, thanks for your work on this. So when I vote at the library, because I'm old school, I like to go on the actual day. I would actually prefer to do that and dip my finger in a vat of purple ink, and then we'd be done with it. But nevertheless, this is law now, unfortunately, and we have to deal with it. And I think this is a tremendous way for the county to get together and save a lot of money and resources as far as labor is concerned. But when I go on election day, I go into my own room for my ward, and I have my own tabulator in there and my own specified ballot for my precinct. How do we deal with that? How is that dealt with at the county level?
So this might actually help answer Councilman Stuchel's question too. The reports that are available, first they'll be unofficial until the canvass happens, but those reports that we publish on election night will show how many for each race voted in an early voting precinct or voted in an election day precinct. So you'll be able to break it up that way too. And then of course for every precinct you always have those ballots that are physically there so that you can always do an audit. So does that answer your question a little bit?
I don't think completely. So my understanding is the tabulators that are counting my votes in my ward are set for that ward. Are you gonna have 22 tabulators in the room? Is what, I guess that's how, or is the one machine gonna be able to differentiate? I mean, I know the technology, is that how it works? The one machine would differentiate?
It's just based on the programming, which the county does in-house. In our election office, we program the machines to be able to, in this case, take all of the different ballot styles in the whole county.
So then the answer is that there's gonna be one machine receiving.
There will be two, because the state has recommended that you have around 10 precincts per tabulator on their recommendations, so we went to 2.
Do you guys have any idea what it would cost us to go this alone, to do this by ourselves?
Basically everything, I mean, your portion of the notice, you'd still have to buy tabulators, so you have your own voting booths, but essentially everything else you'd still have to pay for.
Don't we have 4 tabulators?
But you'd need
separate
ones because they're programmed differently.
So we have to buy a new tabulator for all 4. You're talking your wages for your inspectors, which 9 days, 8 hours, I mean, that's thousands of dollars just in wages.
No, I understand that.
So,
I understand
that's
that. I don't like it. I don't.
well,
I think you guys are
we
working.
get you.
I think you guys are working with what you got to work with. I mean, I appreciate creativity and I appreciate ingenuity, trying to figure out a way to make this cheaper for everybody. But we're a city, we got a clerk's office, a 40-hour-a-week clerk's office. We're not a little township with, once a month clerk's hours. And man, I really don't want to think Hillsdale people going up and voting at the same time as Amboy Township people in the same machines. I don't like it. I just assume not strain at a gnat and swallow a camel and try to figure out a way to do this. And if it's 10K or 15K, like I said, I see us spend $200,000, $300,000 up here all the time on things. This is the autonomy of our elections we're talking about, and I don't like the direction that this is going in. And that's nothing against anybody else, or like I said, I know you guys are working with what you have to work with, but Councilman Palladino.
Yeah, sorry, just still following up on Councilman Soha's question. So if I vote an early voting site, is it gonna register as Hillsdale Precinct 4, or is it gonna register as early voting site?
Your ballot would be a precinct 4 ballot, but it would be captured on a tabulator for early voting. So when you read the reports published from our county unofficial results, your numbers would be in the early voting column as opposed to the election day column.
Which are undifferentiated.
It's like a column with a subtotal for election day, column with a subtotal for early voting, and then your totals after that. And I would just mention, based on what Mayor said, that yes, I want to also point out that you have a way of opting out of this agreement after the initial term. But keep in mind that your city clerk doesn't currently have a deputy that I'm aware of, so you would have that added cost as well.
No, I know that. I understand that.
What's the deputy angle here? There has to be a deputy on site?
It's just a lot of work.
Oh, it's just a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. A lot of added work.
Well, trying to find inspectors too, to work 9 days, and then you have your election day, which is like a 16-hour plus day. It's hard to find inspectors. So like you're locking people in, I just don't know.
No, Katie, you've been short-staffed for a long long time in your office. When I was elected to council, there was a clerk and a deputy clerk. And that's one of the things that we've caught around here as elections have gotten more complicated and more time consuming. It's really something that we should think about as a council looking at. Did anybody, Councilman Palladino?
I would rather, we got $29,000 now. I would rather look into a deputy clerk, keep the elections local. Yeah, I'm sorry you guys have to deal with this.
Any more discussion? Do I have a motion?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree, but as far as taxing our city staff and at this point in juncture and the cost, and we already spent that $30,000 today, right? So, I mean, that, for the demolition, that was taken up in another building that had already collapsed. That's why we had to re-vote for it today. So, because we had voted for that in April.
I thought that's why you said we waited until the next election year, or the next fiscal year, excuse me.
Oh, maybe I missed that. That might be. Okay, nevertheless, I would rather not tax our city resources and stress them out. Plus, the county is programming the tabulators, so I would assume the city, we would have to program.
No, the county, that's part of the role of the county, is to program for the election. Now, oftentimes in the rest of the state, they do that by sending it to a vendor, but we actually do that in-house in Hillsdale County.
Can I add to, so the 9 days voting, all the local clerks will be working as on-site supervisors. So we're all working together, you know, with their own inspectors and that sort of thing. So the county's not solely, you know, taking over. It's all of the clerks working together.
So you're gonna be down at the courthouse for those 9 days and not here?
I will be down one of the days each election, and then other local clerks will be down there on the other days. So it's a collaborative effort across the board to save taxpayers' money.
And to keep it local.
Councilman Beer.
So how long is this agreement for? Is it for?
The minimum term is through the end of 2025, but there are no state and federal elections in 2025. So after that minimum term, a municipality can give 30 days notice to other parties of the agreement and opt out as long as it's not within a certain time frame of a big election.
And currently by adopting this, the city's gonna be saving money.
Yes,
And
definitely.
being less taxing on our employees. For that reason, I support this. So moved.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Beer, seconded by Councilman Sharp. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Okay, Councilperson Stucci.
Yes.
Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Yes.
Mayor Stocker,
No.
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Palladino,
No.
Pratt. Yes. Sharp
Yes.
and Soha.
Yes.
7 yes, 2 no, it passes.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to new business item C, Dial-A-Ride Title VI Program Revisions.
This revision is a triennial requirement by MDOT as we receive federal funding. On this, there was no changes as our demographics are still the same from 2020. The council, sorry, my glasses are fogged up. Just ask the council to pass through attached resolution adopting the City of Hillsdale's Title VI non-discrimination plan in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This was passed in 2020. Was the last. There was no revisions to it as our threshold is still under the 5% of limited English proficiency. It's part of the 4-step analysis that's in there. So what we do, Dial-A-Ride is they have the iSpeak cards, and we have a app, so if someone calls in or gets on the bus, we can usually use the I-Speak cards, we can point at what language it is, and or call into the app, and we can get a translator online.
Thank you, Jason. Did you have a question, Councilman Morrissey?
Just a comment. I hate to be that guy again, but it says, wherefore be it resolved that the council of the city of Hillsdale Herbie adopts this plan. So if we could correct those spelling errors and those typos, that would be good. I know all Christian pastors want us to be resold, but that is not council business. You don't miss anything, Will. I miss a lot, but I miss typos.
We'll get that changed.
Councilman Soha?
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to Councilman Morrissey's, under the four-factor analysis, the first paragraph reads, agency, which is the city, is required to take responsible steps to ensure meaningful access to their programs and activities by LEP persons. And there was no definition for LEP before that in the document. It is after that, but I would appreciate that being before that so people could understand, because I had no idea what the acronym stood for. And I'm reading through this and I'm looking down and I don't see, and then I went back through the whole document before I finally found the answer for limited English proficiency, which I don't really see that being an issue here in Hillsdale, but unfortunately, when you get money from the government for an entity that requires silliness like this.
Absolutely. So this document actually came from MDOT that way. So we did note that, and when we sent it back for a revision. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more discussion about this? Entertain a motion to pass the attached resolution.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call vote. City Clerk?
Councilperson Soha.
Yes.
Stuchel.
Yes.
Veer.
Yes.
Wolfram.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey.
Yes.
Palladino.
No.
Pratt. Yes. And Sharp.
Yes.
Got 8-1 approved. Resolution 357. 7-4.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move on to new business item D, parking lot preservation bid award. Jason.
Excuse me a second.
Yep, you're okay, buddy. City-owned parking lots are on a 5-year cycle to clean pavement cracks and apply overband crack fillings in addition to applying 2 coats of sealer and reestablishing existing pavement markers. Sealed bids were returned and opened on July 27th. The bid that was received was rejected as it was over the budget amount of $35,000. One bid was rejected. That was approved by council. The project was rebid with an extended completion date of June 14th, 2024. In addition to removing 5 of 10 parking lots from the scope of the project, sealed bids were received and opened on September 6, 2023 with the following bids, and they are listed on here. Recommend to award this project to the low bidder in the amount of $25,178.39, which is K&B Asphalt. Are you confident that K&B can do this job properly?
Yes.
Okay, any questions for Jason? Entertain a motion to award the project to the low bidder.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. May I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Stuchel.
Yes.
Veer.
Yes.
Wolfram.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey.
Yes.
Palladino.
Yes.
Pratt. Yes. Sharp.
Yes.
And Soha.
Yes.
It's all approved.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move on to item letter E, City Hall ADA automated door opener bid. You want to take this one?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Department of Public Service received 2 bids to install 3 new automated door openers on the City Hall main entry doors. Installation of automated door openers will improve the ADA access in the City Hall. The approved budget amount for this work was $17,000. This work was budgeted over the current fiscal year. the low bid came in at, low bid came in at a cost of $15,500, sorry about that up top. We had two bids, the Clark Electric was $15,500, which is the local. Toledo Mirror and Glass for $16,844. I recommend to award this, award where it's worked of the automated door of the City Hall to the low bidder, Clark Electric, in the amount of $15,500, and the remaining $1,500 that was budgeted in contingency for a total cost not to exceed $17,000.
Thank you, Jason. Clark Electric's a local company, so that's nice, right?
Yep.
Is this something that we have to do by law, or is this something that we're doing for our constituents?
Some for, what kind of both. We have no actual ADA access into the building besides the ramp. As soon as we get to the door, really there's nothing. Someone's got to hold it open for somebody. So we want to beat to the punch, if you will, before it's mandated, or if you will, that we're going to make them steps to get there.
Very good. Any questions? Councilman Saha.
And help me understand, the bid sheet says Clark Electric 15.5, and then it says add 11,200.
Yes, so those additions, the BP was looking as well to do automated door openers at their facility or in Rose Street. So those second add bids were for them to do theirs. We bid them in the same package, just so we didn't have to do a redundant, put them out again.
I understand. That doesn't come out of our budget, correct? Thank you.
Any more questions? Entertain a motion to award the installation to Clark Electric in the amount of $15,500. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Wolfram. Oh, sorry, Councilman Stuchel. Can I have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Beer,
Yes.
Wolfram,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Palladino,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Soha,
Yes.
and Stuchel.
Yes.
9-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move on to item. Thank you, Jason. We'll move on to item letter F, food truck discussion. All right. Councilman Beer.
Being that we need to do public service and the food truck, I think we kick it back with the other ones that we're doing with the fee schedule, and just to kick it back to public service, and I'd like to just go ahead and schedule that for Monday, a week from today, at 6 in the conference room, if that works for.
I mean, we don't have anything concrete right up here, so I can't see us sitting up here discussing this for half an hour. So, are you other two public service committee members? You guys cool with that? A week from today?
I would not have been until my wife and I changed roles for next Monday, so we're okay.
Okay, so we don't need to take any action on this item at this moment. And we will move on to new business item, letter G, street closures, Scarecrow Fest. Chief?
Good evening. I got this request, it came into the DPS prior to the last council meeting. When I received it, I had very limited information. Because of the date being in October, we had a little bit of time. I requested the DPS reach back out to Felicia, the requester, with a few questions and concerns I had before I brought it to council. One of those being, is this a reoccurring event? I hadn't heard of it before. Was this an HBA event? And had the business owners been contacted that would be affected by closing this block? DPS, Selena there contacted Felicia. The information that came back to me was it's a new event, not an HBA event, and that they had talked to several of the business owners and stated that they were all in support of this. I do not have that in a document, however, with that, I did process to come to the council meeting tonight. DPS did recommend to Felicia that she be here tonight so she could answer any questions about the event, because I cannot, I don't have a clue, so if there's anybody
Corey's here.
I may know some things.
I don't, so I don't even know what they're doing for it.
Okay, so what I do know with the Scarecrow Fest is a lot of the small town businesses, and I'm not sure if anybody from the beautification. Sorry, I'm not sure if anybody from the beautification, there's some other people, but I know it's small businesses that have got together and wanted to add something in the fall to get the community together to do things. So they've contacted some different businesses and are still working on that, as far as like, maybe this business is gonna donate pumpkins for little kids to paint, and maybe this business is gonna do this and various things. There's also gonna be, I believe from my understanding, a scarecrow competition where businesses are gonna set out scarecrows throughout the town dressed up. I know they're looking for sponsors for the event, but then when they started looking at the fees schedule, I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. I don't know all of it, so I mean, I'm just kind of, I'm in it, but not directly. I've not been going to the meetings. I'm just familiar with it because I'm Kevin's wife from the pub and grub, and he's part of one of the people involved in this. So.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions for Corey, if she can answer them?
Yeah.
I just, tomorrow there was a TIFA meeting at 7:30 here
Yes.
in the morning.
So you're wanting to make sure he's there?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm part of the beautification committee, but you can
Okay.
meet with our chairperson and we can start the discussion.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm not sure, like, I just remember he said there was somebody else, and I don't,
Okay,
Kevin
Margaret-
said, and I don't
Margaret
remember if it's somebody on that.
Margaret
board.
Raymond.
Okay,
Tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m.
okay.
And just the last thing, that was a request for a full day closure on October 13th from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. And that's Howell Street, North Howell Street, from North Street to McCollum Street, which is one block, one way. And there's usually full of parking for that day, so.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Any discussion on this?
Will closing that street on a Friday holiday be a terrible inconvenience?
I mean, it's McCollum to north, so that's,
It's Howell.
yeah, it's,
Between north and.
excuse me, yeah, it's Howell, but it's only from McCollum to north. That's,
It's the one-way.
that's the one-way section, yeah. So, you know, it's gonna stink for Gelsers probably, but maybe not, maybe it'll get people down there. So, we don't get a lot of traffic down that road. I think it'll be okay, even on a Friday. So,
Move to approve the traffic control.
motion on the floor? Motion on the floor, from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Stuchel to approve traffic control order 2023-43. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Council, we've got no miscellaneous report, so we'll move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your trips to one to the podium. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and you can speak on whatever your heart so desires at this time. Podium is now open.
James Eder Thomas, 2200 Bar Street. Just quick comments on the thing. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Ingles. I want to say thank you to Josh Grismacher. I want to say thank you to David Mosby. I wanted to say thank you to the mayor for his guidance. I want to say thank you to Councilman Palladino for coming to the property and taking a look at it. Anybody else who's interested to come to the property and take a look, you are welcome. The issue is we have a vegetable garden up in the front, and we are an HBA member, Stony Oaks Farms, and apologize, air conditioning's getting here. So we wanted to expand to a U-pick strawberry patch behind the oak trees, basically abutting Mr. Balcom's lot line with us on the north, which would basically be a parallel line with Greenwood Boulevard, which is where the light is located. And as Councilman Sharp alluded to, plants are affected by artificial light. If I put June-bearing strawberries down and they get artificial light, they're not going to know when June is. They're not going to make strawberries. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any more public comment?
I would like to thank Councilor for approving the automatic door openers. I brought it up like 2-3 months ago. The other thing I brought up, which I think would be good for the handicap, was to move the handicap parking up to the other end so they don't have to go half a city block to be able to go around to be able to get into this city hall, and move the police cars down here. I think would be good for the handicapped people also. I could tell by the smirk from Mr. Sharp about James's grow, which wasn't what he thought it was. And James is quite the gardener, so I just wanted to bring that up. It's not really a grow, it's a vegetable grow. So you won't want to sneak out that way at night planning on getting a little extra for your baggie or anything, so. I thought it was in one of the minutes said you guys were going to talk about the Kiefer thing tonight. I don't know if you did because I didn't get here early enough. No matter what happens, and I know what's going to happen because you guys are going to approve the extension, I already know that, but the amount of money that Tifa loses just in the interest, if they only paid the interest on that $265,000, it would be between $1,500 and $2,000 a month. Tifa, for the last couple of years, I know this year they got some, didn't even have money for a beautification budget. You go to Reading, you go to Jonesville, they got flowers sitting all over. Hillsdale's got a bunch of them sitting right here on the point, and that's it, other than what the store owners do themselves. So I think there should be a consequence for the extension, and I think part of that should be that, hey, Tifa needs some money. I mean, it doesn't have to be the full amount, but anything, $500 a month would be better than nothing at all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any more public comment?
Hello, CJ Tancre. I was wondering who I needed to talk to because I have been on the Hillsdale County site trying to find information on the county commissioners meeting, and there is no, it says an agenda, but it's very limited. There's no notes, there's no minutes from previous meetings, and I wondered if that was the way it was supposed to be, because you guys always put your minutes and post everything. So, and also that the meeting is at like 8:30 in the morning, which is like, does anyone get to go to those? And I was wondering who I talk to, or if someone could direct me on who I speak to as far as getting that information. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Abe, right, that was right just here, would have been the perfect person to talk to, or the county clerk, Marty. Go up to her office. That's her job to keep those track of those minutes and to make sure they're accessible to the public. So, any more public comment? Okay, we'll close the podium. We've got no city manager's report. Council members, anything good? Councilman Morrissey.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk on the south side of West Fayette between Bar and that fueling station. And the properties, and there's a driveway that comes out from Geyer School onto West Fayette. And on one side of that property, the bushes had grown over to block the sidewalk in effect. And so I got in touch with Jason Blake, and his staff cleared that out for us. A lot of people use that sidewalk coming down from Cherry Hill. Handicapped people really couldn't use it very easily because of those bushes. And there's actually a path around the sidewalk where the grass was getting worn out. So anyway, they took care of that. I appreciate that for our Ward 2 constituents.
Morrissey. Thank you, Jake. Any more council comment? Councilman Sharp.
Could you tell me when the next train is coming to Hillsdale? They have what, 2 more scheduled possibly?
I think it's the 8th and the 15th.
I was just curious. I had somebody ask me that.
Go ahead, Councilman Sweat.
Thank you for that, Councilman Sharp. I was looking at the website. There's a news article on the front page. It says news 4-way stop coming to Fayette Street and Northwest Street. And it does say happen on or shortly after Monday, July 24th. But it's been there for a little bit, so maybe we could just change the verbiage. Keep it there, but nevertheless.
Any more council comment? Anybody got anything good? I wish we'd have not done the voting thing, guys. I feel like our elections are the most precious thing in the United States, and I think it's sad that we bulk expended a little bit of money and maybe trying to get Katie some actual extra staff permanently to help with those. But I guess this is the way of the world that we're going, so very disappointing. That's all I'd like to say. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Wolfram to adjourn. All in favor?
No.
Anybody opposed?
I'm opposed.
Roll call vote?
Alright. Councilperson Wolfram.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Morrissey.
Yes.
Palladino.
No.
Pratt.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Soha.
No.
Stuchel.
Yes.
And Veer.
No.
I don't know.
6-3, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.